What's up guys, Michael here, and today we're looking at this, the Realme 7i, another competitively priced Chinese phone, priced at around $200 and so far has been released in Indonesia, but will be available in other regions including India very soon. Now Realme has kind of followed this classic recipe that a lot of smartphone manufacturers use when making their lower end phones. So what they do is they build a phone that is cheap to produce and manufacture, then they take high-end features from higher-end phones and put them into the budget phone and hope that that will distinguish them from regular other phones. So what has Realme picked from the plethora of 2020 smartphone design? There's quite a few, let's see if you can pick them out. You get a Snapdragon 662 processor, 4GB of RAM, a 6.5-inch HD Plus 90Hz display, a quad camera setup with a 64-megapixel main sensor, a 5000 mAh battery, 18-watt quick charging, and a fingerprint scanner. So that's a lot, and after using this phone for a full week, I've got to know it quite well. Now there are things about this phone that I really like, and there are other parts that have let me down in moments that I needed them. Just because the spec list looks fire, doesn't mean that those specs are going to perform in the way you imagine they will. But let's start with the good stuff first, and the number one thing that I enjoyed about the 7i has been the battery life. Now this is not the sexiest feature to talk about by far, but it has made my life a lot easier. I've been consistently going to bed with at least a third of the battery remaining, and that's with heavy usage. One day this week, I got up super early here in China to watch my favorite US comedy.
I did not say it on tape. He said stupid.
And I was on Twitter and I was messaging people about it, all with my VPN on, which is extremely battery hungry. I then went to Shenzhen Bay and took lots of pictures and videos, all with the phone on full brightness as well as music streaming. All the way through to the evening when I had a lengthy video call over 4G with my parents that lasted well over an hour. And after all of that, it was still running well into the next day, and if I did get low, I could top it up using its 18-watt fast charger. So, all good so far. Now let's talk cameras. So this phone comes with a quad camera setup, a 64-megapixel f.18 main lens, an 8-megapixel f.23 ultra-wide, a 2-megapixel macro, and a 2-megapixel depth sensor. So let's start in the light and then descend into darkness. The main sensor takes decent shots in the daytime. Colors look vibrant and there are plenty of details. However, like with a lot of budget smartphones, they do have a tendency to over-sharpen, which in my opinion ruins the image sometimes, especially if you want to crop in or post on an Instagram story. If you use the full 64-megapixel sensor, there is a noticeable exposure drop-off, leading to a much darker image. However, if you blow them up, or crop or zoom, they are very usable. They're super rich in detail. If I zoom in and compare the details of the trees here using the standard mode, you can see it looks mushy and pixelated. And if we switch to the full 64-megapixel sensor, then everything comes out much richer in detail. The macro lens is 2 megapixels, and I would usually laugh at a 2-megapixel sensor, and yes, this thing is not worth the time of somebody in a factory attaching it to the phone. You would get better shots from this if you used the main sensor and cropped in. But it's there to play with, and it means Realme can say it's a quad camera setup. Woo! The portrait mode does its best and will produce decent enough photos for your social media timeline, but don't expect the edge detection to always be on point. There is definite edge blur when it comes to more trickier terrain. The ultra-wide takes nice shots with good dynamic range, and is a great option to have, although you do lose some color and detail compared to the main sensor, but overall is a decent addition to the phone's shooting capabilities.
Now to the dark side.
You will need to use the dedicated night mode this phone has. Images shot using the normal mode come out blurry and soft, and although the night mode rectifies that, the overall image still has the look of a painting rather than a photo, and I'm not sure I'd want to use all of these photos that I took in this mode. Oh, and the selfies look like this in the day, and this at night. Video quality is not a headline feature. It shoots 1080p and only goes up to 30 frames per second, which is a shame considering the Snapdragon 662 can handle 60 FPS, but whatever. But the picture quality isn't great. It's sluggish, and for me, I wouldn't consider it usable. The colors are not overly exaggerated, which is a pleasant surprise, and tones seem natural and, dare I say, lifelike, although these leaves do look a little faded as I try this swooping Hollywood close-up. One thing that is appreciated is the electronic image stabilization. As I walk, it does a good job of stopping any major shake, although there are some pretty hefty, sudden jolts when I change direction. But overall, I wouldn't be using this to vlog or anything like that. The main outer design of the 7i is pretty cool. It looks smart, it looks modern, it could be confused for a much higher end device if I'm honest. You have that full screen layout with a 90% body to screen ratio, with a hole punch display and that 2020 trending square camera unit we've all got used to. You have a nice glossy finish, and a headphone jack and expandable storage. So, pretty good. Realme's software UI, based on Android 10, is decent. There's a little bit of bloatware, but the overall design is clean and has a few little tricks baked in that I've started to become very accustomed to, like the swipe menu that is there on every screen that allows you to toggle your most used tools no matter what you're doing on the phone. So then the flagship feature on the Realme 7i is its 90Hz display, and once you have a 90Hz display, you cannot go back to a normal one. Now for iPhone users, I should quickly explain what a higher refresh rate screen is. Your screen runs a lot smoother when using it. It's kind of the equivalent feeling of the acceleration of an electric car rather than one that runs on petrol and gas. It's way smoother, less bumpy, and more precise, and is super noticeable if you keep switching between the two. Having said that, this is where my smugness ends, because although this does have a 90Hz display, its performance can't keep up with it. This phone is not good at performing lots of basic tasks that should take advantage of that 90Hz screen. Scrolling through my Twitter timeline, there is a massive noticeable lag. Animations are clunky in general, and changing between apps can sometimes be a complete joke. To actually enjoy the 90Hz screen, you've got to use the phone really slowly. Now I don't know if this is the chipset being poorly optimized in this phone, or whether it's software. I've done a complete factory reset from the start, I played around in the settings, and I've installed a huge update, and nothing helped so far. Basic processing tasks like editing photos are fine, there are no crashes or anything, but if you want to play a top tier game like Asphalt 9, then it's not going to be a smooth ride. And the performance shouldn't really be like this. Now, this alone kind of ruined the whole experience for me. What's the point on putting on a 90Hz display if the internals or software can't support it? Now yes, if you swipe in between apps and you swipe up and down the app drawer, then of course you will see a nice smooth display. But if you do anything else like reading an article or scrolling on a timeline, where that 90Hz should be showing itself, it just lags. Now, if an update does come out in the future that fixes all of these issues, I will for sure leave an update in the description. And if you have any questions about the 7i, then please drop them in the comments section below. And if you enjoyed this video, it would be fantastic if you could subscribe. Thanks for watching, I'll see you in the next one.